Okay, guys, let's start for today's class. So, what is the topic of today's is key documents in pharmacovigilance. So, key documents in pharmacovigilance itself are like the documents, or you can say the guideline which we follow to perform the PV activities. Okay, or whatever the documents which we need to submit to the regulatory authority for getting approvals. Okay, for getting license approval or for getting marketing authorization, holder license, or any kind of document which is responsible for PV activity is called key documents in the pharmacovigilance activity. Let's see what are all those key documents in this session, and let me check. Okay. So what is the content for today's class is like what is the importance of the key documents, various verticals of the PV, various documents and its purposes. Okay, what are the various reporting formats, a time frame for the key authorities, and what are the various forms like MedWatch forms and SIAM forms. These are also a kind of key documents. So let's start with first topic, that is the importance. So key document in pharmacovigilance are the critical importance for ensuring the safety, efficacy, and regulatory compliance. As I told you, that whatever the document which we are utilizing to perform the PV activities, and when we say PV activities, so it is in regard with the drug safety, drug efficacy, and to maintain the regulatory compliance. And how we maintain the regulatory compliance, as we know, if there are certain time bound activities along with the regulatory authority, and we have to fulfill those activity within that timeline or within that time frame, then only it is called as the compliance activity. And if we are not performing the activity in the dedicated timeline, then it would be a non-compliance. And non-compliance have certain other consequences, that we have to file some deviations, we have to file certain, do the RC kappa, what is the reason for that non-compliance, what happened, and why it is happened, that that leads to the non-compliance. Okay, and it happens throughout the life cycle of the product. These documents not only facilitate the effective risk management, but also serves as a vital tool for communication with the regulatory authority, healthcare providers, and patients. So yes, it is not only the document, it is also a mode of, or you can say mode of communication through which we can communicate if there is any risk involved in any of the document. Okay, to regulatory authorities or to healthcare professionals or to the patients. Because what are these key documents? These are the documents, like these are the PSUR, these are the PSMF, and these are, so all these documents contains certain information which needs to be communicated to the regulatory authority, which need to be communicated to the healthcare providers or to the patients, that they have the first right to know the safety and efficacy of the drug or the harm associated with that drug. Okay. So there are few reasons why these cases are important. Why these documents are important? Because to maintain the regulatory compliance, to ensuring the patient safety, okay, to effective signal detection and risk assessment, data transparency and communication, scientific and clinical support. So yes, as I told you that regulatory compliance is important, and how we are ensuring, we already saw in the previous slide. Ensuring patient safety, yes, if we have the information in these key documents, then yes, and these documents are percolated to all the stakeholders, all the regulatory authorities. So it is a mode of communication, and it is ensuring the patient safety. Effective signal detection and risk management. So yes, if we are monitoring or if we are writing whatever the findings which we are find during the assessment and we are maintaining those assessment in these key documents, then those are the kind of effectiveness. If whenever you have a case which is have some unique ADR and you are databasing those ADRs, so whenever you are going to search that something new that happened in that case, okay, you come to know that it was not before in our database. Like you have thousands of reports, but that is a single report which is in your database and with that particular ADR. That may be a signal. Okay. Data transparency and communication. So yes, whenever we are filing whenever you are utilizing these key documents to file something, okay, then it would give you a clear communication and you cannot forge anything if you are finding the associated ADR with the drug, then you have to report it. You cannot hide it. Okay. So that's how data transparency comes into the picture. Scientific and clinical support. So yes, whenever we are submitting certain regulatory filings, we have to submit the clinical data, we have to submit the scientific support data to, whenever you are doing some submission, even uh, in your laboratory, in your B-Farm projects, in your M-Farm projects, you have to showcase your assessment through when just suppose if you have some spectroscopy type kind of thing have you done, so you have to show the chart of that spectroscopy. Okay, if you are doing some animal study, you have to show the what is that chirogram something. Okay, so that are some scientific support or some clinical studies documents. Okay. So when we are saying the key document, so this is the first document, that is Global Individual Case Safety Report, that is ICSR. So yes, ICSR itself, when we process ICSR, it became a report, and that report is a kind of key document because if that case is serious, we need to submit it to the regulatory authority, and if it is non-serious, then it will be a part of aggregate reporting. Okay, so it is a key document, it is a key element of the PV. And when we are saying IFSR, so 80% or you can say 85% of the PV industry involved around this ICSR only. Okay, because anyhow you have to work on the cases, whether it is a single case or whether it is an aggregate report. Okay, so what is the purpose? It contains the detailed information of an individual adverse action or the side effect reported for a particular drug. So yes, whenever you want to check something that so you can just write in the database the key element into the database, like if you want to search like how many ADR happens with paracetamol and that have dizziness, so you can come to know a single number, you can come to know that 1500 cases with paracetamol and dizziness. You can come to know that how many Nemoslide is carcinogenic or not. So whether a case is with Nemoslide and carcinogenic or cancerous effect, then you can put that search string that carcinogen and with Nemoslide. So you can come to know that there are 15 cases in your global safety database that Nemoslide is responsible for causing the carcinogenic effect. Okay, so that's how that ICSR gives you the prediction of signals, that give the prediction of you the aggregate reports for a particular period. Because when you are searching Nemoslide and carcinogen, then you can also put a time frame that from last 1 year, how many reports you have got for this ICSR, okay, or for this event here. Key component for this ICSR is the patient demographic, the suspect drug, the adverse reaction, and the outcome. and also the reporter, because these are the criteria to bring some ICSR into a valid ICSR. Okay, we can define ICSR as a valid ICSR if these key components are present in the ICSR. So next document is the RMP, that is the risk management plan. And what it is? It is a document, or you can say strategic document, that outline how risk associated with the medicinal product will be defined, assessed, minimized, and communicated. So yes, when we are seeing, or when we are writing in RMP, so it is, and whatever I am saying, these key documents, these are kind of departments in PV universities, and you can make your career in these verticals as well. These are not only the key documents, these are key verticals where you can search in deep, and you can also make your career. Like if you want to join the RMP department, you should know what is RMP, what is risk minimization plan, what is risk mitigation plan, and what is the risk associated in PV industry, what kind of risk associated in the drug, and how we can mitigate those risks. Okay, so those kind of plan is called as the RMP, that is risk mitigation plan or risk management plan, that give you a brief assessment. First, it identifies that this may be the potential risk which is associated with that drug, and once it is identified, then it is assessed whether it is, what is the severity, what is the seriousness of that risk, whether it is a life-threatening risk, or whether it is just a lethal or it is just a risk. Okay, whether it is possible to minimize that risk or not. If yes, then what are the various methods through which we can minimize that risk? And if a drug, or if it is a drug associated with that some risk, so it needs to be communicated so that it will be a normal behavior. It should not be a surprise for the end users. Okay. And what are the key components? Like these are the safety specification, pharmacovigilance activities, risk minimization measures, and the post-market safety studies. So what are these key components actually? That safety specification means that at what dose you are facing those ADR, and whether when it is prescribed you 500 mg, then you are feeling dizziness with paracetamol, or when you are taking more than 500 mg, it is like 500 mg is prescribed and we are taking 1000 mg, and then we are feeling dizziness. Okay, so that are the safety specification, that it is written that 500 mg ka dose is safer for use, but we are taking 1000 mg ka dose, so that might be have some consequences, and we have to face that. Okay, so that kind of thing is called under the safety specification. Pharmacovigilance activity is nothing but like you, what is your assessment, what how you detect that ADR. Okay, the detection, assessment, and understanding of that ADR, whether it is known or previously known or unknown or incompletely known. Okay, risk minimization measure, as I told you, that if there is certain risk associated with that drug, so what are the measures we are taking to minimize that risk? As I told you, if it is like we are taking 1000 mg and we are feeling dizziness, so we can take it like 500 mg twice, so that dizziness should not be experienced. Okay, and post market safety studies means it is a PV, while after drug is launched into the market, there is also monitoring is required. Okay, so this is a kind of brief about the RMP document. That is also a very key important document in the PV industry, along with the ICSR. What is next? Let's see what is the next. So there is periodic safety update reports, that is PSUR and DSUR. So DSUR is nothing but it is development safety update reports. So these are kind of aggregate reports. Okay. So these are the aggregate reports, comprehensive reports submitted at the regulatory to the regulatory authorities and summarize the safety profile of drug available based on the available data. So what is the basic difference between the PSUR and DSUR? PSUR is the when drug is in market, and DSUR is, as name suggested, that drug is the development safety update report. Once the drug is in the development phase, whether it is in clinical trial or it is like after clinical trial, there is and before the approval, then it is called as the DSUR. When when we are sending some and like periodic report like ISSR, which are submitted to the regulatory authorities at the time of once we receive that ISSR, those are the serious ISSR. And what are about the non-serious ISSR? Those non-serious ISSR, if it is achieved from clinical trial, then those are the part of DSUR reports. And if it is from post-marketing drugs, then it is a part of PSUR reports. Okay. And like, for example, if you have a study ongoing or if you have a drug which is for which you have got the marketing authorization and you need to submit the PSUR to the regulatory authority, what you will do, you will like for last 5 years, I have to submit the PSUR for paracetamol and dizziness because then you have to select the event and drug pair that paracetamol and dizziness, and you have to select the date range. Okay, for last 5 years, and whatever the number of cases are coming, you have to capture those in your aggregate reports in the form of summary tabulation, and like that summary tabulation contains that how out of the if suppose for last 5 years you receive 1500 or 15,000 cases for paracetamol, then out of 15,000 cases, how many cases are serious cases, how many cases are non-serious cases, how many cases received or reported to the regulatory authority, how many cases are from a spontaneous source, how many cases are from literature source, and how many cases are from regulatory sources. So that kind of bifurcation is always required. Okay, and that kind of categorization we provide to the regulatory authority. So what is the key component? Key component is the summary of the adverse event, any change in the risk profile, and the conclusion based on the data. So yes, these are the key elements for the PSUR and DSUR reports. And I told you this is again a very burning question that what is basic difference between the DSUR and PSUR. So I hope it is clear to you. Okay. So this is again also a very, you can say, key element or key document for the PV activities, and most of us want to make a career in PV, want to go in aggregate report because aggregate report is very demanding after the ICSR one. First is the ICSR and second would be the aggregate report writing. So many medical writing field companies are running because of these aggregate reports. Okay, see what's next. So next is the PSMF, that is Pharmacovigilance System Master File. Okay. So what is PSMF actually? So PSMF is a you can say comprehensive document which contains all the regulatory requirements related to whether it is related to marketing authorization, whether it is related to the launch of drug, whether it is related to the regulatory submission, that how we will get the marketing authorization. So all the regulatory requirements for pertaining to a drug are mentioned in the PSMF document. Okay. And being an organization, if we have to submit, so it is a and PSMF also have their own schedule that every 6 months we have to submit the PSMF, or after every 1 year we have to submit the PSMF. So each drug have their own schedule based on their organization or based on their need. So this is again very important key document, and it is also a very, you can say, you can explore the what is PSMF, what are the various information, because it is more or less related to the regulatory authority. So you have to keep yourself updated that what are the regulatory guidelines, what are the regulatory guidelines um, published every month, and how we have to, you know, comply with those published regulatory authority, you say regulatory guidelines. Recently, we have some guidelines for masking the patient information. So how we have to comply with those, regulatory authorities, that kind of thing we have to keep in mind, and we have to keep ourselves updated based on the regulatory needs. And it is not particular to the any reason. It may be like basically PSMF is required for each reason, but if any guideline which is published from FDA and it is applicable for U reason, then also it need to be included. Okay. So what are the key component for this PSMF? Like organizational structure, what are the processes, procedures, and what are the resource allocated for the pharmacovigilance activities, because we have to set the organizational structure, and in organizational structure we have to give all the relevant sources which are required, or you can say resources which are performing the PV activities. And when we are saying PV activities, so how many staffs is in ICSR process, how many are of our in PSMF, are how many of us in PSUR or RNP. So that kind of bifurcation is also required. Okay, let's see what's next. So next is the SDA. SDA is something very interesting, and it is called a safety data exchange agreement. Okay. Suppose I am a company X and I have given all my work to a vendor organization Cognizant. Just suppose I am a core organization X and I have given my all PV work to Cognizant. So there should be a agreement between Cognizant and XYZ company that what duties need to be performed by Cognizant, what duties need to be performed by XYZ. And if there is another company also involved in this, what happened actually? Sometimes, like might be Cognizant have limited resources to perform the medical review, or they do not have the sufficient staff to perform the medical review. So in that scenario, what happens? The core organization XYZ given their all PV activities to Cogni, and Cogni all do not have the MR bandwidth with them. So they have given that MR work to some other company C. Okay. So in that scenario, there will be a SDA, that is called a three-party agreement. Okay. And when there is no C company, only there is a agreement between the Cogni and XYZ, then it would be a two-party agreement. Okay. And safety data exchange means like the initial report ABC company, the XYZ will receive, so that need to be shared to the Cogni, then only they are able to process the ICSR. And if Cogni have the EMA portal and MHRA portal or some other regulatory portals, and they can directly download the cases, then they need to share those download report on daily basis to the vendor organization, that is ABC or XYZ. Okay. So these kind of thing happening. It is nothing, but it is just a kind of, previously we have timetable that we have to, this one will be the first period belongs to this subject, second period belongs to this subject. Same way, this agreement is something that this duty performed by XYZ company, this duty performed by the Cogni, or this duty is performed by the C organization, which are giving support for medical review kind of thing. Okay. And what would be the profit sharing? Everything is mentioned in the SDA. Okay. And so the purpose is that formal agreement between parties, such as between a sponsor and the contract research organization or distributor, for the exchange of safety data. Okay. And if company is just working for some core company XYZ, so each and every detail they need to share. They need to share. Okay. And each and every detail they need to share to the core company, because those are the service, because those are the company who are giving you the work to the company. Okay. So this is a very interesting safety data exchange agreement, and it need to be updated. Like if it is that agreement have valid for 3 years, so after 3 years it get revised, or if you get some new vendor for service providing the service, then also it will get updated, because if you are terminating the service, then they need to be revoked. Okay. So that kind of thing which is happening while doing the SDA thing. So SDA is also very good and very booming thing. You should know that what are SDA, and how we have to maintain the SDA, what are the termination law, and also if any vendor want to terminate the service, they have to provide some notice period. Like if it would be decided at the initial time when they are signing the SDA, that there would be a 6 month notice for terminating the services, or it may be 3 months kind of notice, to terminate the services. Okay. Okay. Let me move to the next slide. So again, next key documents are like adverse event reporting forms. For example, MedWatch. So yes, these are also very important key document, because when we do not have the any established database, in that time we can do the manual reporting with the help of these key documents. Okay. So sorry, with the help of these forms, manual forms that are MedWatch forms or anything. Guys, are you with me? Are you getting what is SDA and what is RFP? Because PV industry is very small and we cannot perform each and every activity from our own. We have to have, we have to have take the support of other organization. Like as I told you that we have the full house of PV activities, but the core company who have the PV work, they do not want to increase their costs. So what they are doing, they are just outsourcing their work. They are taking the, you can say, 50% of the profits, and they are outsourcing each and everything to the vendor organization or to the service providers organization. So that how we and that SPA comes into the picture. RMP, I told you that risk mitigation plan, risk minimization plan, whatever drug we are consuming, there should be a associated risk for that drug. So how we have to manage those risks, that is RMP, PSMF, something related to the regulatory, that we have to keep updated ourselves with the regulatory guideline, what is published today, what is published tomorrow, what is published yesterday, whether we have compliant with those regulatory guidelines or not. If not, then how, what efforts required to make ourselves compliant with those kind of the regulatory authorities, or you can say regulatory guidance. Okay. So adverse reporting form, I already told you that it is something which is related to when you have to report and or you have to submit your ICSR without any database, then these forms are very much utilization, and these are basically filled by the healthcare professionals, because you cannot carry your laptop each and every time, and but you can carry this form in your purse or in wallet every time. And being a healthcare professional, it is our moral responsibility to carry these forms. And because when we are dealing daily basis to our patients, so yes, maybe patients have some consequences of some drug. So, and what is the purpose of these forms? Use to collect the information on adverse events for reporting, for regulatory reporting and post market surveillance. Okay, so same. It is mainly responsible giving the data for the ICSR, and it is a kind of ICSR is the it is also an ICSR, but it is a manual form, and it is not an electronic format. And when we are inputting the data into the database, then it is an electronic form. If you have some information in the form, you cannot search on single click. You have to search it manually. But if you have something in your database, then you can search that information on a single click. Even those are in thousands. Okay. Yeah, and key component are same. Like these are the four essential criteria for the RCSR. So there are certain reporting formats of ICSR. When we are saying the FDA, so FDA is following the MedWatch. When we are saying EMA, so EMA or European Medical Agency, they are following something called SIOM's form. So why these forms are required? These forms are also the key documents, and these are required to submit the cases into the different results. Like FDA requires MedWatch, that MedWatch is also two types, that 3500 and 3500A, and SIOM's is required by the European Medical Agency. And not only if you do not have like any of the form, you can send manual manual information to email as well. Okay, let's see how these forms looks like. Okay, so there are certain reporting requirements in US. So because we have mentioned here the FDA and European Medical Agency, so we will check the reporting requirement and check the reporting format of the FDA first, and then move to the Europe. And why I every time I am covering these FDA and Europe, because most of the global world is divided into two parts, that is the FDA and the EMA. Okay. So what is the requirement for the US FDA? A 15-day alert report based on the information of the scientific literature is required to be accompanied by a copy of the published article. If we are talking about a literature report, so yes, that have to have certain that need to be generated from some literature article or published articles. Okay, and that if we have that article with us, we can attach it, that published article, then it would be much better for us. along with the reporting form. And the reporting form is what? It is the 3500A MedWatch. The applicant shall complete the FDA form for each report of the adverse drug reaction experience. So yes, if you have if you have experience, like if you have multiple patients, so you cannot fill a single form for all the patients until or unless it is a aggregate report. But if you have different information of the patients, so you have to fill a single form for each of the patient. Okay. Each completed FDA forms 3500 should be first on only an individual patient or a single attached publication. So yes, what I told you that each completed form should contain only a single patient or individual patient from the published article or from the publications. Okay. So when we are saying the clinical trial from US FDA or US reporting for clinical trial reports, so all the clinical trial which are life threatening need to be reported in 7 calendar days, and other than the life threatening that need to be submitted in 15 calendar days. It must be serious, it must be unexpected, and it must be possibly related with the drug. And it is something related to the laboredness, that the study not related or labeled events are captured and processed, and non-serious trials event may be not collected in the database because those are non-serious, and we are not bothered about the non-serious event because those are part of the aggregate report or EBSUR report. Right now we are most bothered about the serious one. Okay, so this is something related to clinical trial in the US regulatories or US. So the reporting format is, as I told you, reporting format is the MedWatch in the FDA. And the purpose is to detect the safety hazard signal, and the MedWatch is collected report, which is like MedWatch contains adverse reaction for, and not only adverse reaction, it also contains the quality problem for any of the drug, and it may also, you can also report the special scenarios like lack of effect, pregnancy, technical complaints, kind of thing. Okay, and who can fill those forms? Any healthcare professional can fill, consumer can fill, patient can fill these voluntary forms. So there are two type of form that was 500A and 500, sorry, 3500A and 3500. So one of them is mandatory for the MAH holders and one is the voluntary for the healthcare professionals. And how can you report these forms? You can report online, you can report through phone. If you do not have any form or if you do not have, you can directly call to their toll-free numbers. And if you do not have the phone, you can email them you can fill the form and you can email those to their mail ID. If they have the fax, you can send it through fax also, or you can fill it manually and send it. And how it looks like? It looks like this. So it is the 3500A, which is the mandatory form, and this is for regulators and for the industry people. So this is the MedWatch 3500A, and it is the mandatory reporting for the regulatory industry, like regulated industries and the user facilities. So like when we are saying user facilities, so all the MH, the marketing authorization holders or the regulated industries means PV industries or also regulated industries. So all these forms need to be filled by all the MH who are dealing directly or indirectly with the drug product into the market. Okay, this is the 3500A, and there's one more form that is the 3500 only, and it is the voluntary reporting form because it is written here also for voluntary reporting. Okay, and it is basically for consumer and healthcare professional. Okay, So there are certain basic difference, not the much, and all the information related to these two forms are almost similar. Only few of the section are more in this mandatory form, and those are not here. Mean and all other information related to this is more or less same. Only that, sorry, only some report numbers or something duplicate numbers or some regulatory numbers are more in the mandatory forms, because these are mandatory, and these are some, when they are submitting to the regulatory authorities, they are assigned some numbers, and those numbers need to be filled into these forms only. Okay. So now moving to the, so US time frames, as I already informed you that the US, all the fatal and death case need to be submitted to the 7 days. All other serious other than death and fatal, it need to be submitted in 15 days. Okay, and US do not require the non-serious cases. So these are the time frame, and we have to follow these time frame. If we are not following these time frames, then it would be a non-compliance. Okay. Moving to the EU timelines or EU reporting requirements. So when we are saying EU reporting requirements, so what are those? So there is a GBP module in the EU region, and based on that, there are, these modules have certain descriptions. That module 1 is basically for pharmacovigilance system and their quality system. Module 2 is basically for PSMF. 3 is basically for the inspection. 4 is for the audit. 5th is for RMP. 6th is for the electronic reporting, that is called management and reporting of the adverse events to the medicinal product. Okay. 7th is for the PSUR. 8th is for the post authorization safety study. 9th is for signal management. 10th is the process for additional monitoring of the medicinal product. 15 is for safety communication. 16 is for the risk minimization measures. So these are various modules which we have to follow. And when we are saying the key documents, so these GBP modules are also a key documents in EU result, because these are kind of guidance which we have to follow. If suppose in EU region you have to draft the PSMF, like pharmacovigilance system master file, then you have to follow the GBP module second. If you have to conduct an inspection in EU region, then you have to follow this module 3, that is for inspection. If you have to conduct some audit internally into the organization, then you have to follow this module 4. So you might ask why these many modules, because these are categorization, or these are the standard document. And if we need to perform the risk management system, or as I told you, RMP, then we have to follow this module 5. Same way, if we have to submit the ICSR, or we have to perform the ICSR processing, then we have to follow this module 6. So these are also key documents for Q result. Okay, and like if you want to write the PSUR, that is periodic safety report, then you have to go through this module 7. Okay, so that GBP module also have some annexes. What are those annexes? Annexer 1, Annexer 2, Annexer 3, 4, and 5. So these annexes may have, Annexer 1 is for definition, Annexer 2 is for basically for terminology, 3 is for template, 4 is for the list of the internal pharmacovigilance guidance documents, and 5th is for the list of other guidance documents. So why I am emphasizing these documents? Because these are also the key document in EU region, along with the GBP, the main GBP modules, which is in the previous slide. There are some annexes And that annexes also have some list of their internal guidance document. Okay, so we have to go through those as well once, and each modules have these each annexes. Okay, like the internal pharmacovigilance guidance have nothing but these have the certain cross reference document. Okay, which need to be go through while doing these modules. So when we are saying the GVP module, so GVP module have certain consideration as well. Okay, what are those consideration? GVP module have consideration for based on the product and the population. So consideration one is basically for the vaccine and for prophylaxis against the infectious disease. Consideration two is basically for the biological medicinal product. Okay, and there was a consideration third previously, now it is obsoleted, so instead of third we directly have the consideration four, and consideration four is for periodic and geriatric population. As I told you that GPM module have some special consideration of the product and population. So what are those products? Those are the biological products or those are the vaccine products. And what are the special population? The population is the geriatric patient and the pediatric patient. Why these have special consideration? Because when you are saying that vaccine and the biologicals, those are something which is required, more emphasis, or those required more, you can say, preservation, because those are the biological products. We cannot sell it openly, and they require certain pasteurization product, because those are pasteurized product. They need certain sterilization kind of techniques. When we are saying the vaccines also need to be stored in certain kind of specified temperature, pressure, something. Okay, they have their own kind of packing, which is something different from the normal drugs. So that's why they are considered, especially considered. And when we are saying the population, so periodic patient and geriatric patient means the newly born babies, the child, because those are more susceptible towards the reactions, those because the immunity level of those population are very low, whether it is the periodic patient, because those are just born and they are yet not started their life, they are more susceptible. And next is the geriatric patient, those are the old elderly patient, and these are also the, the old age patient have so many comorbidities along with their existing disease. If they have some heart problems, so they also have the some BP problem, they also have some sugar problem, so that's why they also have the specific consideration. Okay, so the reporting database in EU is the UDRA Vigilance. This UDRA Vigilance is basically for launched in 2001, and it is for electronic exchange of ISSR for early detection of signal, for monitoring and evaluation of the potential safety issue, continuous monitoring and evaluation of the potential safety issues. So yes, more or less databases have same kind of work. The only thing here is that their hierarchy may be changed, their kind of presentation may be different. Okay, but more or less the you can say the motto for each of these databases are same. Okay, so I'm moving to the next. So yes, Udra Vigilance have their two modules. That is, first is the EVCTM and second is the EVPM. EVCTM is basically for the clinical trial module. That is when a case which is received from clinical trial, then we have to follow the EVCTM module, and we have to process and ICSR in this module only. And if next is the EVPM, if ICSR is received from the post marketing during the PM or during the post marketing, then we have to follow this module, that is EVPM. Okay, I believe So yes, along with this, we also have one authority that is in reason, that is MHRA UK, or you can say UK MHRA, that is Medicine and Health Product Regulatory Agency. So previously also it was existing, but after the Brexit, this comes into the into the picture, because that Britain have their own agency that is called MHRA UK. Okay, and although it was basically previously established in 2003, but comes into the picture after the Brexit in 2020, or you can say 2019. And if you want to in more detail, you can navigate to this link, that is www.mhra.gov.uk. Okay, so it is something related to the MHRA. And yes, there is a one more reporting database that is called the Yellow Card and Yellow Scheme. So this is also, as I told you, that some manual forms are the key documents. So this is also a kind of key document, because this is a yellow card scheme is established in 1964, and it was published by the MHRA UK only. And actually what happened, the yellow card, why it is called as a yellow card, because this was utilized by the old paper, which were one-sided blank and one-sided they have some material. So MHRA just decided to utilize those discarded papers which are pale yellow in color, and because those are very yellow, those are very old, and because of that they became yellow in color. So that's how the name came from into the picture, that yellow card. Okay. It is not that they are intentionally became yellow, no, because of the life of the papers, they became yellow, and those the name came into the picture, MH, that yellow card, and this also contains all the information related to the person, the suspect product, the medicine, the event, everything. So this is something, when we are saying that documents, so we have to go through these guidelines as well. That is ICH guideline. I'm not going into detail, but ICH guidelines also responsible have certain guidance document for their perform the PV activities. And when we are saying the PV, the key documents and PV, so we have to go through these ICH guidelines as well. That is E2B E2B that is E2B some E2B E2B F. So all these documents, all these guidelines are related to whatever it is related. Someone is related to the PSUR, someone is related to the benefit risk evaluation, someone is related to the pharmacovigilance planning, someone is for DSUR report. So more or less, it contains same kind of information, but they have their own guidance, that is called practice guidelines for pharmacovigilance. And this is also a key document. These are the guidelines, whatever the guidelines published by the, because we cannot, we cannot, you can say, limited to any of the continent. We cannot limit it to the FTA. We cannot limit it to the EU, because when you are facing interview, you can ask regarding anything. Might be you are doing interview for some company who are something in doing in PV in Tanzania. If you are going for an interview in which the company is performing PV in Tanzania or in Uganda, in that you have to know that when I am going for an interview for PV industry like XYZ company, then for which country that XYZ company is performing the PV, and for that particular country you should be get aware of all that, what are the regulatory authority, what are the regulatory requirements, what are the regulatory guidelines, or what are the key documents for those countries. Okay, whether they have some guidance document, whether they have some regulatory, or if they do not have their own guidance, then what they are following, whether they are following the EU region guidelines, whether they are following US region guidelines, or they are following something ICH guideline or WHO guidelines. You getting, so these kind of preparation that kind of homework you should do while facing these kind of interviews in PV. Again, this is something SIOM's documents, or you can say SIOM's guidance for same kind of thing, that is international regulatory reporting for adverse reaction, international reporting for the peers who are for preparing the core clinical safety information on the drug, benefit risk, current challenges, application signal detection. Okay. So same, it is same vaccine pharmacovigilance. So why I am covering this? Because it is also a key document based on the SIOMs. If I am going for an organization who are performing PV based on the SIOM guidelines, at that time you have to go through these working group guidelines. Okay. So I am not covering in detail because of the time constraint. So this is the SIOM form, how it looks like. Okay. It also have all the information related to the patient, related to the drug reaction, the suspect product, the concomitant product, the manufacturer information, each and every information is there. So this is the SION form which is utilized in the EU region basically. And if you, although it can be utilized in any of the region, but more or less it is basically EU form. I hope this is the end of the my presentation for today's class. If you have, I am stop sharing my screen. If you have any queries for me, it is welcome for you. Over to you guys if you have any queries. You can type, you can ask. Okay, if no query,